All right, we're on to 2-3, which are rules for addition. So I hope that by now you can add, and I know that y'all can, but it kind of gets a little bit confusing when you have negatives and positives, and we're just going to go over some tricks of the trade to be able to better be able to do it. And we're going to be using absolute value signs because we know what absolute value means. Yay! Okay? So, for real numbers, A and B, if A and B are positive, you just add them. So if you have A plus B, then you're just going to add them. So that's, absolute value of A plus the absolute value of B, because they're already positive. It's going to be the same thing. All I'm saying is, example, 8 plus 11, add them together, you get 19. Okay? So if they're both positive, just add. Now, if A and B are both negative, you're going to add the numbers and keep the negative. So what I mean by that, so if you're adding A and B, and they both happen to be negative, what you're going to do is you're going to basically put the negative on the outside, and you're going to basically take the absolute value of A plus the absolute value of B, and then make it negative. What I mean by that, example, -2 plus a -13. Okay, if you think about that, we're basically taking the absolute value of -2, which is 2, the absolute value of -13, which is 13, 2 plus 13 is 15, and we make that negative. So that's going to be a -15. Now, if A is positive and B is negative, and A has the larger absolute value, then you're going to have this case. So then you're going to have, so we have A plus B equals the absolute value of A minus the absolute value of B. For example, then you're going to have example, we have 9 plus -6, okay? So we just said A is positive, which is 9, and B is negative, which is 6, and A has a larger absolute value. You take the absolute value of both, we have 9 and 6, but 9 is still positive. So all you're going to do is take the absolute value of A, which is 9, and you're going to take the absolute value of B, which is 6, and subtract them. 9 minus 6 is 3. We know that adding a negative is also the same as subtracting, so really it's just 9 minus 6. Now, keep in mind, this is only if in this specific case where A is the positive number and it has the greater absolute value. Now, if A is positive and B is negative, and B has the greater absolute value, then this is the case. So in order to add A plus B together, you're going to have to do the absolute value of B, which is negative, and then make that negative, minus the absolute value of A. Okay? So, for example, we have 8 plus a -13. Okay, so again, A is positive, B is negative, but unlike the other case, if you take the absolute value of both, 13 is higher with absolute value. Okay, so then what you're going to do is B, in this case, we're going to take the absolute value of 13, which is -13, and we're going to subtract 8 from it. Okay, so then we end up getting a -5. Okay, so what I would actually think about this, basically, you find their difference, okay? You find the difference between the two, and you make that answer negative. Actually, I think I wrote that wrong. Yeah, sorry, my bad. Put the negative on the outside. So, you would take the 13 minus 8, which is 5, and then you make it negative because we know that B, the greater, B has the greater absolute value, so that means it has to stay negative. My bad, guys. Now, if A and B are opposites, then A plus B equals 0. We already talked about that. So like an example for that would be 7 plus -7. They're opposites, and we know that that equals 0. Okay, so hopefully this didn't confuse you absolutely too much, because I know that y'all most likely probably know how to do this already, but these are some tricks to help you get it easier. And I'm going to say it in an easier way to remember, okay? So if you have the same sign, if they're both the same sign, you're going to add and keep the sign they have in common. So if they're both positive, just add them like you normally do, and the answer is positive. Now if they're both negative, like -5 and -7, add 5 and 7 together, which is 12, and then just put the negative in front. Okay? Now if they have a different sign, if bigger, you do bigger absolute value minus smaller absolute value. And you're just going to keep the sign, keep the sign of the one with the bigger absolute value. So if you have, again, whichever one's bigger, so if you take the absolute value of both, whichever one's bigger, that's the sign you're going to keep. So if you have -5 and 7, 7 is the greater one, so you're going to keep it positive. Your answer is going to be positive. Now if it was -7 and 5, you would the absolute value of -7 is greater than the absolute value of 5, so therefore you have the negative number. Hopefully this helps.